Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I have another paranormal video to share with you guys. Honestly, I didn't expect to be making this video so quickly after the last one, but yesterday I was doing some research and I came across some things I just needed to tell you guys about. Plus, you really seemed to love the last one. Many people were like, yes, I can't wait for more of this content. So here we are, we're getting down to business. Anyway, for those of you who are new here or who may not know, I'm originally from Newfoundland, and Newfoundland is an island on the east coast of Canada, and it is unlike anywhere else I've ever lived. And I've lived in many different places, but it's steeped in culture and music and folklore. And it's just such a fun and interesting place to learn about and to visit. If you ever get the chance, I highly, highly recommend you take it. You'll never want to leave. Back home, there were so many times that we'd meet people who were new, especially in the summer times, and they would tell us that they were Americans who had come here to visit and they just bought a home to have as a summer home. It's a beautiful place. And of course, since it's an island, it's surrounded by water, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss living by the sea. But anyway, so the tales I'm going to tell you today, these are all well-known, long-living ghost stories that have circulated around that province ever since I was a little girl and well before that. These are stories that when I was doing the research the other day, I can remember some of them. One of them I can remember hearing when I was 10 or 11 years old and being absolutely terrified. So all of these are stories that take place in the capital city of Newfoundland, and that city is called St. John. And it's actually North America's oldest city, which is very interesting. And when you're there, you can feel that. You can feel it. So many of the buildings are made out of stone, just really made in the way that things aren't made anymore. It also has many nicknames. Fog City is one of them, but also the City of Legends. And one thing that's often happened in St. John's is there's been many fires for some reason, just many fires. In fact, there was a massive inferno in 1892 that burned down most of the downtown core, except of course for all the buildings that were built out of stone and really stood the test of time. But many things burned to the ground. Now the first ghost we're going to talk about is a ghost that goes by the name of the Headless Captain of Queen Road. And this was the one that when I was a little girl used to always scare me. This tale goes back hundreds of years, and legend has it that there was a captain who used to sail back and forth quite frequently between England and St. John's. And whenever he was in St. John's, he had a lady that he was sweet on, and he would go and visit her whenever he was in town. But as luck would have it, she already had a sort of full-time steady boyfriend. And one night when the captain came to visit her, and that lover attacked him with a sword in such a way that, you know, he's now called the Headless Ghost of Queen's Road. Legend has it that if you're down on Queen Road at the right or wrong time, he can still be seen just wandering the street, trying to find his murderer who went unpunished. And he's just sort of carrying on, searching, forever searching. The next street that really has a lot of notoriety to it is Victoria Street. And Victoria Street is actually known for having the most hauntings reported out of all the streets in St. John's. And the ghost that's reported as being seen around there the most often is of two females, and one is dragging the other down the street by the hair. Now, I don't know how many sightings have been reported on that one in particular. I haven't heard as much about that one, but it was certainly enough to be mentioned in an article that I was reading. And I'm actually going to link that article down below because it was very helpful with a lot of great information. And It talks about a lot of sites that are on the sort of haunted hike of St. John's, and it's just a wonderfully written article. And so definitely check that out if you want to read more about it. But of course, not all ghost sightings and situations are negative. I was also reading one about a man who was sort of the lighthouse keeper in a very, very small town called Twillingate. And he reported that one day he was up at the top inside the lighthouse. And how a lighthouse is built is it's kind of hollow in the center, if that makes sense. You kind of go up in a circular motion, and then goes straight down in the middle. Anyway, and when the lighthouse keeper was up at the top, he fell down through the center. And he reports and swears by the fact that before he could hit the ground, he was caught by something and put on his feet and thereby saved. But there was nobody there. So what I really love too is that so many of these tales, these ghost sightings, these things like that are told by people who, you know, preface it by saying, I don't believe in ghosts, but here's something that happened to me. I just love that. Plus, what I love too is with St. John's, like I said, it's so rich in culture, and you know, it's such an old place. So you have the age of the city, then you add to that it's an island, and it's an island that depended, as many islands do, on the fisheries as a source of income for many families. So you have kind of that whole mythology of the sailor who goes out to sea, and you know, the ship sinks, and I just find that kind of adds to the whole ghostly feel of it. Plus, there are so many colorful characters in Newfoundland that just love storytelling so much, and it's just the perfect storm for a lot of really interesting and entertaining ghost stories. Another place in St. John's that boasts a lot of sort of sightings of ghosts is a place called the Four Sisters. And the Four Sisters is a small group of houses, very tiny. They're built out of stone. In St. John's, one of the really sort of landmark buildings is called Cabot Tower. And Cabot Tower is made out of stone. And anyway, the same man who built the Four Sisters. And for years and years, there have been reports of people saying that they can see a woman in the window, and sometimes she's just standing there, sometimes she's waving, even when the house is very clearly and 100% vacant. Nobody's renting there, nobody's living there, but people still see this woman. And it really was kicked up a notch when at one point a family moved into the house. And the little girl, like a very young girl who really had no rhyme or reason to be, you know, making things up. A girl who had certainly never heard of the stories about the house. She began reporting that when she was laying in bed at night, she began to see a woman standing at the foot of the bed. And her description of that woman matched the description of the woman in the window that had been reported for years and years. So I think that's very interesting and very scary. Can you imagine if you were asleep and you woke up and you looked at the foot of the bed and there was a woman standing there? No. So the final story that I want to touch on today is one that I find to be just so endlessly fascinating, and I might actually do a deep dive into this story because I want to get more info. But I'm going to tell you the gist of it right now, and then in the comments down below, let me know if you want me to do a dedicated video to this one story, because there's a lot to unpack. So this is the story of the ghost of Catherine Snow. On July 21st, 1834, in what was known as the Old Courthouse in St. John's, I'll insert a picture here, a woman by the name of Catherine Snow was hanged in the window because she was convicted of the murder of her husband. She had maintained the entire time that she was innocent. A lot of people seemed to think so as well. But she was found guilty and her life was taken. One little interesting fact, she was actually the last woman to ever be hanged in St. John's, in Newfoundland in general, but in St. John's. Soon after that, though, there were reports of many things happening in the old courthouse, things that were unexplained, and people began to worry that the building was being haunted by the ghost of Catherine Snow. Eventually, time went on and the old courthouse was done with and the new courthouse came to be, and it was actually 2 courthouses later, there were still reports of unexplained things that were attributed to the ghost of Catherine Snow. Now, fast forward almost 200 years later to 2012. All of a sudden, things have escalated to the point where the case actually gets reopened. And there's a whole to-do. Her case is tried for a second time, and she is exonerated of all charges, and she is found not guilty. Like, they did this whole thing almost 200 years later. And I guess now the hope is that the ghost of Catherine Snow will finally be able to rest by giving all of the people who work at the courthouse a bit of a rest, and of course letting her finally rest as well. So I think that's such an interesting story. If you would like more details about that story, there's so much that I could share with you, and yeah, I could do a whole dedicated video. We could get into the details of the case, how the retrial went in 2012. And it's so funny because to me that feels like such a Newfoundland thing to do. I feel like not many other places would do that. But there we are, Newfoundland's a special place, what can I tell you? Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and thanks for being so supportive with this kind of new branch of my channel. My next video won't be paranormal related, I promise, but there's definitely a ton more to come in the future. So I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you guys real soon. Bye.